Welcome back. You made it to part 2 of this blog, and the blog is blog topic 2 on knowledge. And before we get started, here's Buddy Rich, one of the greatest. He's like the Mozart of drumming. If you ever see him on Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, wow, it was just inspirational. He's the reason I became a drummer when I was 8 years old. You know, I just loved watching him just play. He's a maniac. But I think Ringo Starr got me too, man. He was just smiling, just playing like this, just playing, having the best time of his life. And so we're on this blog topic 2, and it says, just how genuine is this verb epiginosko that we should desire this? It's genuine. That's what it means. Genuine, full knowledge, right? That we should desire this. Genuine, full knowledge. As genuinely the real thing as Christ's knowledge of us. What? Wow, don't you think he knows us? It's genuinely, fully the real thing. Genuine is like the real thing, and fully as Christ's knowledge of us. For we will have this same knowledge of Christ and his kingdom when he returns and changes us into his likeness in a twinkling of an eye. That's what it says. There's verses for all this. Go check it out. As genuinely and fully as the Father knows the Son, and the Son knows the Father. That's how this epiginosko knowledge is. It is genuine and full. As the Father knows the Son knows the Father, and it says, anyone to whom the Son decides to reveal him, the Father. Where does it say that? It says that in Matthew 11:27. You know, the Bible is not written in English. So if you type that in Bible Hub and hit the interlinear button, you'll see these connectors, these conjunctions. And it says, anyone knows, and no one knows, and no one, and that's a conjunction. And furthermore, right, no one knows the Son, if not the Father, right? Now, that's what it says in Greek. But it's actually, in Greek, it says, if not in possibility, the Father. So no one, absolutely no one, it says. Absolutely no one. See, there's a lot lost in translation. Absolutely no one knows the Father. That's what it really says. Absolutely no one person knows the Father, right? If not impossibility, the Father, right? So there's like no possibility. Nor the Father anyone does know, if not impossibility, the Son. The Greek is a lot more specific. So there's no possibility for anyone to know the Father except the Son. And, it says, connecting conjunction, and to whom this conjunction, if it's a conjunction eon, which means if it's saying I'm going to set up a conditional statement here, if the Son might choose. So he chooses. The Son whom the Son decides or chooses. And you say, how do you know that? Because you can just look at the Greek word there for choose. It's balamai. It means to plan with full resolve. There you go. To plan with full resolve. Full resolve. Decides or chooses with full resolve. So this is what they understood. You wouldn't understand this unless you look right here. Your English Bible is not going to say this. 900 English Bibles. I bet not one of them says this. And anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal, and there's that word apocalypse, where we, apocalypto, where we get apocalypse. It means to uncover. It's not to show something that doesn't exist. It means to uncover what already exists. Right? Uncover what is hidden. So he takes the covers off. That's what the Son does. And to anyone whom, so we want to know the Father, we've got to come to the Son. Because the Son's the only one who knows the Father. And that word know is epiginosko. That's that special, intimate knowledge. As genuinely as Luke's gospel research was, and it was just research, was for Theophilus, probably a noted Greek or Roman, probably Roman senator, to know for certain the things he was taught concerning Jesus. That's how genuine it is. He wanted Theophilus to experience these things that he was taught, right? That he was taught concerning Jesus. So he was taught by somebody, and Luke knows this guy. Luke is a physician, so probably a well-known physician. So he probably knows this guy, and he says, I want you to know for certain the things he was taught concerning Jesus. That's in Luke 1:4. So this is genuine and fully. So he went to a lot of extent writing the book of Luke. That's what he did. And he did a follow-up, and that's the book of Acts, which is the early church history. So he did this Acts research, and so we got 2 books because of just wanting to do research for one person. Right? And book of Acts. So he did this for one person. So do you think he intended to write a Bible? Did he want these 2 huge books to be included in a Bible? Not even in his remotest thoughts. Not even his remotest thoughts. He wasn't even an apostle. He wasn't an early disciple. He was a follower of Paul, who defended Mark, who ended up creating a gospel. But he would have been kicked out if it would, right? Because Mark abandoned the faith early on. He abandoned following because of the persecution. It was so intense. So that's how genuine and fully. And what is this knowledge? This is as genuinely and fully as when Christ knew when the Spirit's power had gone out from him, right? It was this enabling power, this dunamis power, had gone out from him to heal someone who had touched him in the crowd. So this is like personal knowledge, right? As genuinely as the gospel, right? As genuinely and fully as the gospel bears fruit and grows wherever in the world the unconditional loving favor of grace, right, of God in the truth is really known. Is really known, right? That's what it says, is really known. Colossians 1:6. So again, regardless of what your English Bibles say, you really ought to, if you have a question, you should be using Bible Hub or Classic Net Bible. And it talks about, and knew the grace of God in singular truth. In singular truth. That's that Jesus is the singular truth. He is the singular truth. How do you know the grace of God? It's by the means. It's not in. The grace of God is known in the world by the means. So it's because it's the dative case. Dative case almost always means by the means of. It can mean in the location of or with the company of. But it's clear here that it is known wherever in the world, right? It is to know, you've heard from the day and know the grace of God, right? As genuinely as the gospel bears fruit and grows, wherever in the world the unconditional love of God by the means of the truth is known. Yep, that's what it says, is known. And, well, this is interesting. This is a special kind of knowledge. Yeah, it's epiginosko. Yep, that's it. It's experiential known. So if it is experienced through relationship, the loving favor of grace by the means of Jesus Christ, the truth, right? This is who brought grace to the world is Jesus Christ. He is the means that the loving favor of grace is even in the world. Wherever that is known, experienced, right, through relationship, this is what bears fruit, right, and grows. It's what bears fruit and grows. Wow. And increasing. Wow. And increasing. Wow, that's the gospel. It's spreading. It's spreading where it's real. You don't see the gospel spread. I haven't seen an evangelism. I haven't seen it spread in most churches. They're not bringing new people in from the world. They're bringing it in from other churches. I've been in 15 music ministries. I can see that these are all Christians. All Christians from other churches. And when you talk to them, they're all Christians from other churches. You see very little impact in the actual world, the gospel. And it's because I don't believe it's very real. I think it's entertainment of the saints. I was hired, in many cases, paid to entertain the saints. That's why this music ministry is something completely different. It's moving away from that. I know the Lord's moving us away from this. This knowledge goes way beyond outward sight, but requires revelation. We saw that earlier, revelation. To open our eyes to really know Jesus, right? It's going to take something more than just our sight. Without this revelation, the Jews didn't know that John the Baptist really was Elijah that was to come. They asked him, "Are you Elijah?" But they couldn't see, right? They couldn't really know this. How else could Jesus simply walk through a crowd of angry Jews that were going to throw him off a cliff, right? They can't really see what's going on. How many times was it that Jesus was only suddenly recognized by others? And yet we can genuinely know the inside or nature or essence, right, by the outward, right? We can do this just like, right, we can know this inside nature by the outward, just like a tree is known by its singular fruit. Not 9 fruits, but singular fruit. Singular kind of fruit, right? Cabernet vine creates Cabernet wine. a Merlot vine, that's Merlot grapes, create Merlot wine. So you can taste this outward thing, you can look at the grapes, you can see they're different. And it tells you what kind of vine it is. The Christian musicians, if they want people to really get it and really know God, then they will have to get them, right, people, beyond the outer physical realm into the inner realm of the Spirit, right, into the very heart of God. This is where fruit and righteousness will come from. It comes from within. But how can they lead others to something they do not have? And that's why Christians, certainly those with the Spirit's grace gift of discernment, right? See this blog I have about that. They can see that many Christian songs are coming from a place, people who have discernment of the Spirit, they can see that these Christian songs are coming from a place of man's might and power of flesh. That you can see it, right? And not from the realm of the Spirit. They are not coming from the realm of the Spirit. And you want to go look at this. Remember that you can only be in one of those circles at a time. You can only be in one of those at a time because the circles don't even touch. Now that was from some other blog. You can go look at the identity blog. You cannot be in, let us strive to make music from within the Spirit circle. So, right? You can only be in one of those circles at a time. Remember that the new covenant is completely different in kind, right, than the old covenant. So you can't be in man's old covenant might and power of flesh, and that's what all of it was, right, and be in the realm of the Spirit at the same time. You just can't. They're completely in different realms, right? So you can only be in one of those circles or realms at a time, right? You can only be in one because the circles don't even touch by definition. You got to be in one or the other. You got to choose. And so we have to decide, are we going to just keep playing this game of playing music, in the flesh, from our own skill, our own might and power? Or are we going to go somewhere else? Just how genuine and full is this noun epignosis that we should desire this? So we looked at the verb epiginosko, but what about the noun that we should desire this? the religious zealousness, right, for God that the Jews had was not down from or according to. This is a Greek word meaning kata, K-A-T-A. It's not down from or according to. Genuine experiential, genuine full experiential, relational epignosis, knowledge of God. It's not. Paul says that in Romans 10:2. No, God calls all people to be saved, and coupled to this, to come by repentance to the genuine, full, experiential, relational, epignosis knowledge of the truth. And we know the truth is Jesus Christ, who we can only genuinely, fully, experientially, relationally, epignoso is Christ. John 14:6. John 14:6. I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. Right? I am the truth. So we know this is Jesus Christ. And what does he say in John 14:6? Is there anything else? John 14:6. Let's just put that in Bible Gateway. So I use 3 tools a lot. I am the way. So, and no one comes to the Father except through me. So we know that this is Jesus Christ. And we know it's his gospel logos message about himself, right? That is the truth. And there's a lot of verses, 1, 2, 3 verses that talk about the truth is that. So let's just look at some of these and just see in Bible Gateway. I'll just copy those right in there. And we'll see. It says, he says, and their knowledge of the truth. That's that epiginosko knowledge, God's elect, the faith of God's elect, and their knowledge of the truth. And when you heard the word of truth, which is the gospel of your salvation. Wow. So this is pretty clear that the gospel message of their salvation is the gospel message of the truth. Right? Who is Jesus Christ? And we know if you go look at that message, it was about himself. Right? That's what it was. The gospel message of himself, of the truth, is about himself. And he always was talking about himself and his mission. Some people will always be learning. We saw this in a previous thing. They are always acquiring gnosis information of the Bible is implied from teachers, but never come to a genuine, full, experiential, relational knowledge of the truth. And we can see that in 2 Timothy 3:7. And you can look in Bible Hub again at the interlinear, get the Greek on that. And they are ever learning Monthano. They're ever learning Monthano is learning facts. It means learning facts. It's not a bad term in itself, because we learn from Christ directly. Might take my yoke upon you and learn from me. So that's direct learning from Jesus through a yoke, through a connection. So they will always be learning the facts from teachers. but never come to a genuine, full, experiential, relational epignosis knowledge of the truth, because it's not learned from teachers. It's that connection. Come to me, not through any teachers, not through Paul, not through Peter, not through anything. You come to me. Learn from me directly. Wow. However, if you generally want to experience sin, oh boy, do we? Not. Just embrace the Old Testament law. For through the Torah law of conditional favor comes the genuine, full, yeah, you just get it all, man, experiential, relational, epignosis knowledge of sin. Oh boy, I can't wait to know all about sin. Oh yay, we'll just go read the 5 books of Moses. That's why he says in 2 Corinthians 3:18, it will harden your heart. A veil will come right over your heart. A surefire way to, quote, be given over by God to a depraved mind to do what should not be done is to absolutely not, in fact, examine to prove God genuine, right? In by or with, having and holding in your genuine full, so inside, holding on to, right? Having and holding. This is a having and holding. If you don't want to have and hold in you genuine, full, experiential, relational, epignosis knowledge of God. So if you don't have, in other words, stop looking for God to genuinely have and hold Him, right, by experiential fellowship. So if you want sin to explode in your life, right, a surefire way is to do what it talks about here. And that is just don't hold on to a actual knowledge of God. It is absolutely not, in fact, examine to prove, prove the genuine God, right? The genuine God. To prove genuine. Oh, it's to prove genuine. That's the verb. It's to examine to prove genuine God, right? If you don't want to do this, do not examine God, right? In by or with having is by the means of having. It's the dative case, by the means of having. Or holding onto, right? The genuine Epiginosko, genuine, full, experiential, relational, epignosis knowledge of God. So if you don't want, if you want to be given over by God to a depraved mind to do what should not be done, a surefire way to do this is to not in fact examine to prove God genuine. So just look the other way. Just look the other way. Just look the other way. Just be involved in something else. Just don't examine to prove genuine God. And how do you not do this? By the means, you gotta, how do you prove God genuine? By the means of having, and it's not research, it's not Bible reading, it's by having and holding onto the genuine full knowledge of God. In other words, stop looking to be depraved. Stop looking for God to genuinely have and hold Him by experiential relationship. That's it. That's how we get into sin. Reading and studying the Old Testament will just speed up the process. If Christian musicians want to lead people away from sin to a holy God, then they will have to stay out of the Old Testament law. or zealousness for it. See, they were zealous. But instead, lead people to the truth, who is Jesus Christ, right? And to his spirit of holiness. And this learning won't be through, right? But this learning will not be through a ton of teaching, gnosis, information, knowledge of the Bible, but instead leading them, here it is, but instead leading them into genuinely experiencing the Lord through relationship with him. That's what it's talking about. Relationship with him. The experts of the Bible were the blind leading the blind. Jesus said this all the time. They're the blind leading the blind. Isn't that sad? They should have been able to lead people to know the Lord. But it didn't work. It didn't work. It's not through Bible writings. It is not going around saying, know the Lord, and here's how you know the Lord. Read your Bible. I've heard this a million times. This is what they were told to do. We're trying to do exactly the same thing they were told to do in the Levitical law. Go around and teach everybody to know your neighbor, to know God, yada God, and to know his will, right? This is how you do it. We teach you. Teach your neighbor and your brother, and that's your family. But it says in Jeremiah 31:34, this is not the new covenant. That's the old covenant. Right? That's the old covenant. So you want to look at the new covenant way is completely different. Right? Completely different in kind than the old covenant way. Right? To know God and his will is completely different. And you can see that in Jeremiah 31, right? And so I'll put that verse there for you. I think I've mentioned it many times because the New Testament mentions it many times. It mentions it many times. Jeremiah 31:34. That is the new covenant. Completely different in kind. Right? So I think we're going to go to part 3. I like to keep these sharp, right? Part 3. Video starts here. All right, so put your comments down below. We've learned a lot already here, but we're going to learn a lot more in the next video. So let's go to the next video. God bless you.